there. Let's dig deeper now with defense attorney Misty Marris. Misty, what's the significance of the DA sharing this letter? Should he have?
So he shared this letter and it was ultimately taken down, but this letter was actually part of a public record previously. The letter was part of what's called a habeas corpus petition for the Menendez brothers. This is the filing which sought the Menendez brothers to either have a resentencing or to have their conviction overturned. So the district attorney sharing it did not seem like a good move necessarily. However, it's not that it was new information per se.
How likely, Misty, is a resentencing really?
Well, resentencing is generally a long shot. However, we're in California, so the district attorney makes a recommendation. Ultimately, though, that has to be signed off by a judge. And there's two paths here. One path is based on a recent California law relating to resentencing, where the court can take into consideration other sentences of comparable cases, whether or not they're the same. They can take into consideration whether the defendants were victims of psychological or physical abuse, rehabilitation, whether or not someone's a danger to society. And that's all a part of a resentencing project. The Menendez brothers is one case of a larger project in California. The second path is this new evidence. Does this new evidence, which seems like it corroborates the Menendez brothers' story that there was abuse before the killings, is that the basis to reduce the charges from what they were, murder 1, to voluntary manslaughter? And if the prosecutors say, you know what, we're going to scrap that conviction because this new evidence came to light, well, we'd only charge them with voluntary manslaughter. They've already served the maximum sentence. So these are all the factors that would be taken into consideration by the judge and the district attorney.
Misty, there was some speculation. We spoke to an entertainment reporter earlier, actually the editor-in-chief at Deadline, and he pointed out that there are some sort of political considerations at play as well, in part because the DA there is facing a very difficult re-election battle, and there are a number of big-name celebrities, Kim Kardashian, Rosie O'Donnell, who have come forward and advocated for the Menendez brothers. She actually says, Rosie O'Donnell does, that she spoke with them recently after speaking with their attorney, Mark Garagos. So let's listen to this soundbite.
I called them after I spoke to Mark last night about doing this appearance, and I said, what's going on? And they said, they're hesitant to hope. After being in jail and prison for 35 years and being abused for his childhood up to that point, these men don't have a lot of bandwidth to hope for what exactly happened.
Misty, how much does that sort of outside influence have on this potential resentencing? Also noted the new Netflix series that is gaining popularity.
I was just about to say there's a documentary, there's a Netflix series that's incredibly popular. You have celebrities standing behind the Menendez brothers. All of that is certainly, you can opine, that's a lot of pressure on a district attorney who's up for re-election. That being said, those are not the factors that the district attorney is supposed to take into consideration or the court will ultimately make a ruling based upon. One thing that is something the district attorney will take into consideration, which is very relevant to the presser we're going to hear today, is the input of the family of the victims and the family of the Menendez brothers. Remember, district attorneys work for the people. And so the victims' families' perception is going to be something that they will absolutely be taking into consideration. Now, that being said, this is such a high-profile case, and habeas corpus petitions are really, really rarely granted. But where we are right now, we know we have this hearing coming up in November. It's just a matter of waiting for the district attorney's recommendation. But remember, the judge ultimately has to make the ruling.
Yeah, Misty Marris, appreciate the analysis. Thanks for joining us.